Looking to see the terrifying magnificence of orcas? Well, you are in for a surprise. The truth about orcas and how often they attack just might shock you. Join us as we dive deep into the most horrific orca attacks ever witnessed. Attacks on humans in the wild are rare. In fact, so rare that no fatal attacks have been recorded. The thing is, these predators have taste for other bigger things in the sea. From seals to fish, and even whales far bigger than they are, orcas can take down whatever prey they set their sights on. They are the true definition of apex predators. However, this is only true for orcas in their natural habitat, when they get captured and placed in tanks for the purpose of entertainment. This is where things get ugly. As of 2024, 4 humans have died due to interactions with captive orcas, and 1 orca alone was involved in 3 of those deaths. Meet Tilikum, the largest orca in captivity. He measured 22.5 feet long and weighed about 12,500 pounds. This captive male orca spent most of his life at SeaWorld Orlando in Florida, where he sired 21 calves throughout his life. Orcas are highly intelligent and social animals. They are built to travel vast distances, up to 100 miles a day in the wild. You can see how this becomes a problem. In captivity, they are confined to relatively small tanks, which can lead to psychological distress. This can manifest as aggression and repetitive behaviors like head bobbing or swimming in circles, all of which were traits Tilikum occasionally exhibited. So what happens when a massive orca like Tilikum is not in the mood to be friendly? As you are about to see, the result is horrific. Like we mentioned earlier, Tilikum was involved in 3 separate fatalities. The first was Keltie Lee Byrne in 1991. Keltie was a trainer at Sealand of the Pacific. Keltie Byrne was a 20-year-old Canadian student, competitive swimmer, and animal trainer.
The question in Florida tonight is what to do with Tilikum after killing a young trainer at Sealand of the Pacific in Oak Bay in 1991.
She enjoyed working with orcas Tilikum, Nootka 4, and Haida 2 at Sealand of the Pacific to earn extra money. But when she turned in for work on February 20th, 1991, Byrne did not know it would be the last thing she did. It was like every other day, working a shift at Sealand until she slipped and fell into the whale pool. Witnesses recalled that Byrne screamed and panicked after realizing that one of the whales was holding her foot and dragging her underwater. Tilikum particularly held on and refused to let go even after she must have fallen unconscious in the water. According to the coroner's report, all rescue attempts were thwarted by the whales, and her body was later retrieved with a large net. Her death was ruled an accident. Steve Huckster, head of animal training at Sealand at the time, had some chilling thoughts on the incident. In his own words, they never had a plaything in the pool that was so interactive. They just got incredibly excited and stimulated. In a 2013 documentary titled Blackfish, Tilikum's involvement in Byrne's death was discussed at length. Notably, all experts interviewed for Blackfish stated that it was unclear what drove Tilikum and the other whales to attack Byrne. If their expertise is any indicator, then years of abuse and cruelty toward Tilikum had made him an aggressive whale. You see, Tilikum would not have been older than 2 years when he was first captured in Iceland. Studies have shown that for an orca, this is a terrible, terrible thing.
An employee is dead after an encounter
at a Canadian park called Sealand of the Pacific.
The victim, Keltie Byrne, was a championship swimmer and a part-time worker at Sealand.
As seen in this home video, rescuers used a huge net to try.
Workers' efforts were hindered by the agitated whales.
I'd like to make the Pan-Pacific teams this summer, but my more immediate goal is just to swim fast at nationals.
In nature, orcas not only live in tight-knit pods, they also tend to stay with their families for life. When taken captive, this becomes impossible. First, they are separated from their family members. Then, they are placed with unfamiliar individuals. Tilikum was a victim of this because he faced a substantial amount of bullying from bigger orcas. He was first placed at Sealand, where he had to live with 2 older female orcas, Haida 2 and Nootka 4. A habit they had in common was raking his skin with their teeth until he bled. The aggressiveness and bullying towards Tilikum only worsened when both orcas got pregnant. Wondering what the tank did to protect him? Well, sometimes they kept him isolated in a smaller tank. Now, while this was for his own protection, It also created the inability to engage in natural social and predatory behaviors. Can you see how a frustrated and traumatized whale becomes a killer? That said, the death of Keltie Byrne was a tragedy and the first catalyst for eventually moving Tilikum to SeaWorld Orlando. Shortly after the incident, Sealand sold all of its orcas to SeaWorld and also shut down the park. Unfortunately, Tilikum would strike again.
27-year-old man found dead in a killer whale's tank at SeaWorld.
He was not detected by the night watch trainers. Nobody knew until the morning that there was a body in there.
Forward to 1999, and Tilikum's next victim was Daniel P. Dukes. Daniel was a 27-year-old man from South Carolina. While SeaWorld had initially claimed that Dukes was a homeless wanderer who climbed into Tilikum's pool and drowned, the coroner's report would prove otherwise. According to the report, Dukes' corpse was found severely mutilated by the whale. The thing is, Dukes was the kind of man who loved to be outside, a lover of nature, if you will. He was also known to occasionally indulge in petty crimes, but these details were irrelevant to the truth of what happened to him. But of course, SeaWorld focused on them. So much so that the media did as well. He was painted as a trespasser and nuisance rather than a direct victim of Tilikum. Eventually, this perception was challenged with the release of the Blackfish documentary. So what happened to Daniel Dukes? At some point on the 6th of July, 1999, Dukes had entered the park and hidden inside. Nobody knows why, but it is said that he went to the whale pool where Tilikum was held. By the time SeaWorld staff showed up the following morning, his body was spotted in the water, draped over Tilikum's backside as he swam around. To compound the mystery of what happened even more, SeaWorld claims to have no security tape footage of the pool from that particular night. Dukes' parents filed a lawsuit against SeaWorld 2 months after their son's death, but the lawsuit was later dropped. Marine mammal trainer Rick O'Barry, however, argued that Dukes was probably not near Tilikum's tank with any malicious intent. He expressed the likelihood of the nature-loving man simply being fascinated by the whale and made the bad decision to visit it. Orcas don't attack humans in the wild, so he must have thought he would have the same luck. It could also be that he simply stood close to the edge of the tank. In his own words, "I think the whale probably pulled Dukes down, held him underwater. I don't think they know how often we breathe." The problem is that the whales have nothing better to do. They're bored. We literally bore them to death. Isn't it sad, though? Why is there always a certain lack of dignity attached to cases that involve the deaths of homeless or mentally ill individuals? The lack of early coverage of his death just goes to show how the media and investigators handle such cases. But the truth is, no matter how troubled the individual, no death should be treated as meaningless. Dukes might not have gotten enough coverage, but Tilikum's next victim did. Because it happened during a routine show, this became one of the most infamous orca incidents. Dawn Brancheau was a 40-year-old SeaWorld trainer who had worked with orcas at SeaWorld Orlando for 15 years. In fact, she was literally SeaWorld's poster girl. All that unfortunately came to an end on February 24th, 2010. It was a Dine with Shamu event where guests typically ate while enjoying a poolside performance of the orcas. And just like every other show before this, the veteran trainer was rubbing Tilikum's head as part of a post-show routine. Notably, she was at the edge of the pool and lying next to the orca on a slide-out. Shocking and terrifying twist, the orca grabbed her and pulled her into the water. It is unclear what happened next. According to SeaWorld, Tilikum had grabbed Brancheau by her ponytail. However, some witnesses reported seeing him grab her by the arm or shoulder. Whatever the case may be, he clearly grabbed her. At some point during the attack, he bit off her arm. At least a dozen patrons witnessed Brancheau in the water with Tilikum. And one thing the witnesses all agreed on? Tilikum's moves were very quick as he pulled her underwater and drowned her. Employees used nets and threw food in the water in an attempt to distract him. Nothing worked. By moving from one pool to the next within the complex, they eventually directed Tilikum to a smaller medical pool, where it was easier to calm him down. But it took approximately 45 minutes before Tilikum released his trainer's body. The autopsy report revealed that Brancheau died from drowning and blunt force trauma. Her spinal cord was seriously injured, and she had sustained fractures to her jawbone, ribs, and cervical vertebra. As if that wasn't heartbreaking enough, her scalp was completely torn off from her head, and her left arm was torn off from her body. It was beyond tragic. Tilikum is not the only killer whale who has wreaked havoc on humans. In SeaWorld San Diego, a female orca named Kasatka also had a violent streak. The first time was in 1993. She tried to bite her trainer, Ken Peters, during a show. She tried again in 1999, but didn't do any damage. Her third attempt would prove to be far more deadly. In November 2006, she struck again. Kasatka was supposed to lift Peters up off the water with her nose. Instead, she grabbed him by the foot and dragged him down towards the bottom of the pool. Kasatka was toying with him. The footage is beyond chilling. We can't imagine how he felt being dragged down to the bottom of the tank by a 5,000-pound whale. Thankfully, Peters managed to slip from Kasatka's jaws and swam as fast as he could back to his co-workers, who hauled him from the pool. Some argue that Kasatka eventually released him of her own will. Whatever the case may be, Peters endured nearly 10 minutes of repeated submersions. Thankfully, he survived the encounter with only a broken foot. The repeated dragging and releasing behavior is one way orcas exert control and dominate in the wild. You can see how this mirrors predatory behaviors when it is now directed at humans. Lastly, Alexis Martinez. The attack began during a training session. Martinez was a trainer who was interacting with a male orca named Cato. But at some point, Cato became agitated. This was possibly as a result of frustration or misunderstanding during the training. Similar to dogs, orca training programs rely on positive reinforcement. It works most of the time, but on this fateful day, Cato wasn't getting his treats. First thing we will understand is that this must have been confusing. Frustrated with the task or the reinforcement, Cato's state of mind suddenly escalated to aggression. This aggression was what sealed his trainer's fate. Cato grabbed Martinez and, as you would have guessed, dragged him underwater. The trainer suffered severe internal injuries, including a crushed chest, broken ribs, and a collapsed lung. Unlike captive attacks, wild orca attacks on humans are almost non-existent. What is pretty common is a pod of orcas attacking boats. There is one popular case that went down in 1972. An orca attacked two men in a small boat off the coast of Iceland. The whale repeatedly rammed the boat, causing it to capsize. Notably, these incidents are often attributed to curiosity or a misinterpretation of the boat as prey rather than predatory behavior. The men managed to survive by swimming to shore, and since humans are not regarded as prey, the orca just let them swim by. In the wild, orcas display complex hunting strategies, but they generally do not see humans as prey. In captivity, however, frustration can sometimes lead to behaviors that mimic hunting or dominance displays, like dragging trainers underwater. These attacks highlight the psychological stress orcas face in captivity. The prolonged confinement, separation from their pods, and an unnatural environment are no doubt contributing factors to their unpredictable and dangerous behavior towards humans. Wouldn't you agree with the ethical and scientific consensus of orcas not being raised in captivity? Let us know in the comments section and enjoy our other videos.